Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something rooted in truth, sealed in heaven, and proven by every woman who's ever walked in the fullness of her identity. High-value woman does not beg for love. She doesn't chase it, she doesn't plead for it, and she sure doesn't settle for crumbs when she was created to be the feast. Because real love, divine love, can't be earned through desperation. It's not found in sleepless nights wondering if you're enough. It's not buried in unread messages, silent treatments, or the shaky ground of someone else's indecision. It's found in the confidence of knowing who you are in God, and the peace of knowing you don't have to lower your standards just to be seen. Love given freely is divine, but love demanded is idolatry. When you find yourself pleading, begging, or striving for someone to stay, to choose you, to love you back, you are no longer seeking love, you are seeking validation, and that is dangerous territory, because anything you put before your God-given identity becomes a false idol. Love is a gift, not a currency you earn through sacrifice, pain, or compromise. It is not something to be chased. It is something that is either given freely or not given at all. And if it is not given freely, it is not love. You were never created to perform for love. You were created in love. That means your worth was sealed before any man ever promised you forever or pulled away without warning. Yet how quickly we forget that truth the moment affection is withheld. How quickly we trade our crown for a moment of attention and our peace for a shallow apology. But the high-value woman knows. She remembers. Love that must be begged for is not love rooted in God, because God does not force anyone to stay, and neither should you. When you place a man's presence above your spiritual discernment, you're no longer waiting on God's best. You're clinging to what you hope will change. That's not trust, that's control. That's not faith, that's fear of being alone. But a high-value woman stands still not because she's hard or prideful, but because she knows love does not flow from pressure. It flows from peace. God will never send you someone you have to beg to see you, beg to value you, beg to come back home. Love cannot be demanded because love is not force, it is freedom. And when you beg for it, you've already handed over your power. You've already traded your sacred worth for a counterfeit connection. The right person, the one divinely aligned with your purpose, will love you without conditions, without confusion, and without you needing to perform or prove your worth. And when it's real, you won't have to ask twice. You won't have to cry into pillows, hoping your silence gets noticed. You'll be seen not because you fought for it, but because God placed you in front of someone capable of honoring you. So no, love cannot be begged. It must be received freely. And if it doesn't come that way, it's not your loss. It's your protection. Because anything you have to strive for to keep will eventually destroy the very identity God built in you. Your worth was established by the Creator, not by a man's affection. Before you were ever in love, before you ever experienced rejection, and long before you ever felt the sting of being overlooked or undervalued, God had already spoken over your life. He called you fearfully and wonderfully made. That declaration was not conditional. It was not tied to how many people choose you, text you back, pursue you, or stay. It was rooted in eternal truth, unshaken by human emotion. You see, when a woman does not know who she is in the eyes of her Creator, she will start looking for identity in all the wrong places. She'll look for it in a man's approval, in his attention, in his affection, in the way he looks at her or doesn't. But when you anchor yourself in the truth that God already approved you, already chose you, because their inability to love you properly is not a reflection of your value, it is a reflection of their vision. Some people are simply too broken to see what's beautiful. That doesn't mean you aren't the masterpiece. You were not made to beg for breadcrumbs of connection, to anxiously wait for someone to remember your worth. You are made for purpose. You are crafted with intention. The same God who designed the heavens, the stars, the mountains, and oceans. He took his time with you. He didn't make you for momentary validation. He made you to be a reflection of his love, his strength, his grace. When you walk in that identity, you no longer settle for half love, temporary attention, or confused affection. You learn to walk away from anything that doesn't echo the way God speaks about you. A man's affection may shift, it may come and go. One day he may see you, and the next he may be blinded by his own immaturity or insecurity. But that does not move your worth 1 inch. The world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. What God speaks over you is final. When he says you are chosen, that you are loved, that you are his, believe it more than you believe the silence, the ghosting, or the hot and cold confusion from people who don't know how to handle your depth. You were created for scraps. You were created for divine alignment, for purpose, for impact, for a kingdom love that doesn't waver with mood swings or disappear during storms. The moment you remember that is the moment you stop chasing affection and start standing in your anointing. A woman who knows her identity in God will never settle for less than she deserves, not because she thinks she's better than anyone else, not because she's prideful or hard to please, but because she understands who she belongs to. When you truly know you're a daughter of the Most High, when that truth is rooted deep down in your spirit, it changes the way you carry yourself. It changes the way you let people treat you. It shifts the entire atmosphere of your relationships. You no longer tolerate confusion, inconsistency, or emotional games, not because you're heartless, but because you're whole. Spiritual confidence is not loud and it's not boastful, it's quiet strength. It's that peace you carry when you know that your worth doesn't rise or fall depending on who chooses you or who stays. It's the refusal to compromise your values just to keep someone interested. And yes, loneliness may visit, but it doesn't get to unpack. Because even in those moments when you feel unseen or forgotten, you know deep down you are never alone. Heaven sees you. God is with you. And when you walk with God, you don't have to cling to people who can't see your light. You just keep shining. See, the world teaches women to lower their standards in the name of love, to bend until they break just to avoid being alone. But a woman rooted in God knows that settling isn't survival, it's spiritual delay. It's saying yes to less while God is trying to lead you to more. And when you really trust God's timing, you stop trying to force things to happen. You stop holding on to relationships that drain you just because you fear the silence that comes after. You understand that the silence is where God speaks loudest, that the waiting season is not punishment, it's preparation. You learn to be content with your own company because you know who's walking with you. That kind of woman doesn't beg for attention, doesn't fight for someone to see her value. She knows her value is not hidden, it's protected. It's not that she can't love deeply, it's that she refuses to love blindly. Her heart is open, but her standards are guarded by wisdom and discernment. So when a woman walks in that spiritual confidence, no rejection can shake her, no delay can break her, and no man's absence can define her. She is anchored, not in feelings, not in romance, but in truth. And that's why she will never settle for less than what God said is hers. Desperation is the enemy of destiny. It clouds your vision, distorts your discernment, and pulls your heart into places God never called you to dwell. When you become desperate for someone's attention, someone's love, someone's approval, you start to forget who you are. You trade your identity for their acceptance, and in doing so, you risk delaying or even forfeiting the very calling God placed over your life. You were not created to chase after people who are running in the opposite direction of your purpose. You were created to move forward, boldly, gracefully, and with focus. You cannot step into the fullness of your calling while clinging to someone who cannot see your value. That's not just about romantic relationships. It's about any connection that causes you to shrink. Any person who makes you question if you're enough, who keeps you in a cycle of almost love, almost commitment, almost respect, is not just costing you peace. They're costing you purpose, because when you're busy trying to prove your worth to someone who doesn't see it, you miss the open doors God is placing right in front of you. Desperation makes you ignore the red flags. It makes you justify the disrespect, tolerate the silence, and rewrite your own standards, just to hold on to someone God never told you to pursue. And let's be clear, the enemy loves a desperate heart. Because a desperate heart will settle. A desperate heart will idolize attention and call it love. A desperate heart will say, this is better than being alone. And God is saying, but I have so much more for you. Your destiny requires clarity, courage, and obedience, not panic. When you let go of desperation, you make room for discernment. You start hearing God more clearly. You begin to recognize who is truly sent and who was just a distraction dressed in potential. You begin to realize that not every almost was meant to be completed. Some were meant to teach you what you never want to tolerate again. And here's the truth. You cannot carry your calling and carry someone who constantly makes you question your worth at the same time. And we'll have to go. And if you truly believe in the purpose God placed inside of you, you'll choose to let go of whatever dims your light, even if it hurts in the moment. Because desperation may feel like urgency, but it's actually delay dressed in emotion. Destiny doesn't beg. Destiny doesn't plead. Destiny requires you to trust that if God is asking you to release something or someone, it's only because what He has ahead is far greater than what you're clinging to. What God has ordained will not require you to chase, convince, or compromise. It will not make you question your value or twist yourself into pieces just to be enough. God is not the author of confusion. And anything that constantly leaves you doubting where you stand, wondering what you mean, or wrestling with your worth is not from Him. When something is truly from God, it doesn't require you to beg. It doesn't require you to break. It asks you to trust. It invites you into peace. Real love aligns with peace, not pressure. It isn't rushed, it isn't forced, and it doesn't leave you feeling like you're always one step away from being abandoned. Real love isn't found in emotional highs and lows. It's found in consistency, clarity, and calm. And when it's God-ordained, you'll feel that peace deep in your spirit, not just in your emotion. Because God doesn't send people to drain you. He sends people to build with you. He doesn't give you someone who plays with your heart and calls it figuring things out. No, He gives you someone who sees you, chooses you, and honors you the way He does. When you find yourself having to chase someone's attention, constantly prove your worth, or lower your standards to keep the relationship alive, you're not in a divine connection, you're in a distraction. And distractions feel good for a moment. They might even mimic love, but they'll always cost you something real in the end. They'll rob you of peace, time, energy, and clarity. And the longer you hold on, the harder it is to hear the quiet voice of God calling you back to yourself. You were not made to be someone's option. You were created to be a reflection of divine love, to walk with dignity, and to love from a place of overflow, not emptiness. When you walk in alignment with that truth, you'll recognize that anything which requires you to chase it, convince it, or compromise for it isn't a blessing, it's a burden. And burdens are from God. God's best doesn't create pressure, it brings perspective. It opens your eyes to what love was always meant to be. gentle, truthful, steady, and rooted in something greater than feelings. When something is from Him, it will confirm your spirit. It will match your prayers, not fight them. It will settle your heart, not scatter it. It will feel like peace, not anxiety. Because love that's aligned with God doesn't make you lose yourself. It reminds you of who you are. Begging closes the door God was trying to open elsewhere. When you plead for someone to stay who's already halfway out the door, when you cry for a second chance with someone who wasn't even faithful with the first, you don't just delay your healing, you delay your divine appointment. Because sometimes what feels like rejection is really God's protection. Sometimes the silence is His mercy. Sometimes the closed door is not the enemy. It's the evidence that God has something better on the other side, and He can't bring it to you while your hands are still holding on to what's breaking you. We've all been there, fighting for what we thought was right, begging for someone to come back, to change, to love us the way we were ready to love them. But begging doesn't build love, and it doesn't build purpose. It builds walls around your heart. It keeps your soul in a prison of what-ifs. It clouds your vision so badly that you can't even see when God is trying to part the waters in a new direction. You can't walk through a new door while camped out in front of a closed one. God doesn't ask you to beg. He asks you to trust, to believe that His plans are higher, His timing is perfect, and His no is just as holy as His yes. And sometimes His silence is the loudest answer you'll ever receive, not because He's forgotten you, but because He's shifting the atmosphere around you. He's preparing something that doesn't require you to compromise, cry yourself to sleep, or question your worth every day. When you beg for love, you hand over your power.